Good afternoon and welcome. This is Kat Cripps from the Business Success Society, and in the latest in our series of A Conversation With, I would like to welcome Brian Canavan of Brian Canavan Coaching. Good afternoon, Brian. How are you this fine sunny afternoon?
Good afternoon, Kat. I'm absolutely fabulous. It's a lovely day. The kids are being quiet. Things are going well.
So have we got a great opportunity for World War III breaking out in the background? You've got to go and sort of start pulling them apart.
No, they've been warned. They've been warned.
Well,
they're not too bad, actually. They've actually been told they can have any electronics or screens they want for this time.
Right.
So they're quite happy.
All right. So a bit of bribery never goes amiss. Right. Yeah. So, Brian Canavan Coaching. Now, how long have you been doing that for now? Because I've known you for a wee while now, but how long have you been doing the coaching for?
The coaching's actually now 7 years, but only 5 years full time.
Right.
And as you know, before that, I actually ran a marketing consultancy, which started in 2008, and then they ran concurrent for a couple of years before I finally made the decision to go full time with the coaching.
And what's your kind of ideal client for the coaching then? Who's your main target market?
The ideal client really is, it tends to be 35 plus, who's, to use a good Scottish word, scunner with life, who's found themselves either in a career or finding their life going in a direction they don't want it to be going, or that they realise they want something more, they want to make a breakthrough somewhere. So they're either likely to be career changing or looking maybe to even thinking about starting a business.
Right.
Those are ideal. And that tends to be what I get, although I do get a lot of people who maybe are thinking about changing career, who actually end up just staying in the same career but actually moving up the ladder a bit as well.
Right, or potentially moving on to find something more fulfilling in the same career.
Sometimes that can happen. What most of them that have moved on have tended to end up being self-employed or going into business for themselves, the people that I've worked with. That's the longer term ones. You get short term. I used to do short term coaching, which is like 1 or 2 sessions, which would just be to overcome a certain problem, because I use neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, and you can do that in a couple of sessions. But I tend not to do so much of that anymore. I can do a little bit of that with people who've worked with me for a few months and maybe drop back in, but I don't tend to do it just with one-off clients anymore.
Right, yeah. So I suppose maybe people who have had that experience, it's a good taster for what you can potentially offer, and come back to you later on.
Yeah, a lot of clients are repeat and stay on for a long time, because once you go into, you think, oh, I'll solve this one problem and that's it, and then you find out, well, actually there's underlying things and they keep going back to the same problem, and then you find that and you think, okay, well, let's fix that. Or you say, okay, now they've encountered new problems, because you notice, like, if you've gone from employed to then starting a business, you've got lots of different new challenges that can come up.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
And different things can happen to people as well. And some people have started a business as well as becoming empty nest parents at the same time. So there's all kinds of different things happening with them, or perhaps one partner's unable to work or something. If something gets thrown into the mix at any point in your life, so people come back for different reasons as well, and for different stages and different things happening with them.
And for anybody who's watching this sort of in 3 years' time, which is always possible, we're in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic just at this particular moment in time. Those of you who are watching today are very well aware of that. Have you found there's been particular challenges around that people have been coming to you with?
Not so much for the people I'm presently working with, but I found that for me, there's challenges in that there's not as much new business. There's not as many leads coming in just now. I think people are very unsure of what's happening in the world and what's going to happen after. If they've been furloughed, are they going to go back to a job? And sometimes, a few have come along and said, well, I'm thinking about doing something else, which is great. But a lot of people are, I think, mind reading a little bit, are saying, let's just wait and see what happens when the dust settles. What's the economy going to be like? What jobs are going to be there? What's going to happen?
Yeah, I've just seen Joanne's comment when we were talking about people getting that ready to make that leap into self-employment. I think that was Joanne then, Brian. That was me 2 years ago. Wish you'd been around then. So,
Well, I was, Joanne, but
well,
unfortunately,
this is to be fair, yeah.
yeah. 2 years ago, I think 2 years ago, I was actually very busy with clients from America and Canada and expats and some European people as well. And I wasn't doing a lot of UK networking or anything because I actually found it at that point a bit hard to get people to understand what a life coach can do for you. Life coaches over here, the experience I've had is that anybody who's come across them has come across them through a larger or more established business, corporate business, and it's been done for them. You know, it's been something that their employer has done brought in a coach or something in, and it's not been something they want to pay for themselves. Whereas the people that I work with in the States, etc., have are a lot more open to it. So you don't have to sell life coaching to them. You just have to be the right coach for them. Whereas here you have to kind of sell life coaching as well. It was much easier actually just to actually concentrate on them for the stuff I was doing at that time anyway.
So that was going to be one of my next questions. How did you break into the US market? How did they find you?
That's actually quite an interesting story. I was part of an organisation called Life Vest Inside. Now it's an organisation that promotes random acts of kindness and just kindness in general throughout the world. It was started by a Brooklyn-based teacher who now lives in Israel, and we were kindness ambassadors. And when I was doing my coaching, my NLP training, I obviously needed to get some experience under my belt. So I offered some free training in there. If people knew of anybody who was maybe in a tough situation, maybe been unemployed for a while or was really struggling, just some life coaching with me for 3 months. And of course, you know, a lot of people knew people and I was inundated, and that was really good in there, getting doing that in my training. But then once I'd done some of that, some people were kind of like just the ethos of what I was doing, giving that away for free and saying, well, actually, I could use some help with making some decisions about things. I could, you know, make some help with what I'm going to be doing next. And they started coming along, and then they started referring other people as well. And that's how it kind of spidered out from there. You know, that spidered out, it kind of goes out from there, which was quite fortuitous and kept me busy for quite a long time. It was very good.
So I guess, and although the pandemic's had a maybe a negative effect on you from the point of view of not so many new leads coming in, your sort of operational methodology of Zoom calls and everything, you were all set up and ready to go with that.
The Zoom calls is something I've done all the time, or Skype. It used to be when people were a bit more au fait with that. And we would just arrange a time, you know, from the systems, you've got these fab systems now, people can pick a time to have their thing with you straight into your diary. You don't need to be pinging emails back and forth. You go on, you have the session, it's all paid, my stuff's prepaid anyway, and it's really quite straightforward. That plus I've got online courses as well that I promote as well, so they kind of tick over anyway as well.
Have you written a book?
Yes.
Yes, I
Although
thought
I didn't really.
You didn't mention it in here, but I was pretty sure you'd written a book at some point.
The whole point of me starting the coaching was came about because I had a fantastic experience with a coach who I credit with basically saving and turning my life around, because I was a stress bunny from corporate, and I'd had insomnia at that point for about 5.5 years, medicated, and a lot of stress-related illness. And she turned me around within 6 or 8 weeks. So post that, I thought, right, what was all the things that were wrong, and how did we fix that? You know, and so that came about then me to write Get Your Mojo Working Fast. Now, mojo is just about, you know, getting in touch with, you know, what works for you in life. Everybody's mojo is different, you know. What delights you and thrills you wouldn't probably delight me and vice versa. So it was about, okay, what are the things we need to look at? And it was really it's more a kind of handbook along with a bit of a story in it about how I turned things around from that, and looking at the various themes that I had to look at. Things like, what's your purpose in life? What's your personal values? What's important to you? What you're willing to sacrifice and what you're not willing to sacrifice? and that went into that book. Now, it's no work of literary genius. I think it's only about 80 odd pages, but it's full of little exercises you can do in there, and it's available as a Kindle on Amazon. I sometimes give it away as a freebie during Mental Health Week as well. I'll do that.
Right, yeah.
Give it away as a PDF, as a freebie.
Do you feel that post-pandemic that there will be an upsurge in requirement for your services?
I think so. I think a lot of people, when they see, or they feel, a lot of people just now are kind of looking at, okay, what's going to happen? I think business is going to be different. I think certainly big business is going to be different. A lot of them are already talking about not bringing people back into big offices, etc. People will be looking at change and what's going to happen with them. And I think there'll be a lot of people looking for what we do. I wrote a blog recently about there may be trouble ahead, because there's a lot of people have kind of firefighting their way through this just now, and trying to do too much as well. I think there'll be a lot of stress around, which for people to be is wonderful, because it's like, okay, right, we can help you get past that, we can help you prevent it, and make sure you don't create that system of life for yourself again.
Yeah.
So I think it will help a little bit for people to even know that there's coaches out there. I mean, there are thousands of coaches out there. There's executive coaches, there's business coaches, there's relationship coaches. There's all kinds of coaches. So to be able to go out there and say, okay, let me explore what I can do. I think a lot of people will be doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I always say to people, I'm not a life coach. I can help you in your business, and I can help with all sorts of things. I can help you to find your purpose to a certain extent, but for me, it's knowing who that I can pass people on to that have those particular skills. You want to just tell people a little bit more about NLP? I'm fairly sure that most of the people who are actually watching live have some experience of it, although I'm not obviously 100% sure. But for anybody who's watching later on, just give us a brief guide to NLP.
NLP, neuro-linguistic.
No pressure,
No,
it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, is really just about using language in the correct way, both in your thinking and in your speech. And when I'm working with a client as well, to use the correct language and to watch for language patterns and things that we say. Simple things like, we talk about deletions, distortions, and generalizations quite a lot in NLP, and it's one of the things you might be saying is, oh, that kind of thing never works out for me. And that never word in there, is the thing that an NLP coach will go, oh, wait a minute here, we need to explore that. Is that always true for you? Is that, and that's a bit cliched and a bit glib. But basically NLP takes a lot of the things that you'll see in psychology and in coaching, and they basically took the best parts and can say, right, what's the key elements we can take here? Bandler and Grindler, the guys who put it together, and kind of say, right, what's the key things that we need to look at here? And there's a lot of these things like the language patterns that we can use, the way we think, the way we distort things, the filters we use. I mentioned earlier values, your personal values, and also your belief system is a filter that you use. So we look at how they can be affecting you. And a lot of what I do with clients is breaking down limiting beliefs, like that kind of belief, like, oh, this kind of thing's not for the likes of me, or people like me never achieve that, I love that when people start talking about that. Oh, good, we can get into that stuff.
Yes, and I suppose also things like imposter syndrome is like, nobody's going to take little me seriously. Why should anybody listen to me?
Yeah, that's everybody I've ever worked with. Basically, and I still catch myself feeling that way sometimes, because I look at some of my, there are big name competitors out there for the kind of work I do, and you think, oh, and why are they ever going to listen to me? But Pam, who's on here, actually helps me out a bit with coaching me and making sure I don't get caught in that imposter syndrome as well. And looking at, okay, why are you comparing yourself? And sometimes when we're comparing ourselves and thinking about that as well, and that imposter syndrome of never enough as well, I'm not enough, and catching those things and actually finding, getting ways for people to discover for themselves what they've already got to offer the world as well. That's great. That's great fun for me doing that. All the confidence work, I do a lot of stuff on that as well. It's great fun.
I mean, I think the thing is, as somebody said to me the other day, that there is only one you in the world, so
I don't think the world could handle more of me, actually.
And that's the thing as well. So I mean, particularly as a coach as well, you know, I'm at the moment kind of working on a new website and all sorts of things, and I'm working on kind of the personality of that in terms of my own personality. And the other thing as well is you know, as I said on Wednesday morning, there's no point in being vanilla. No. You know, people have either, I liked your expression, which was hell yes or hell no, or you can say Marmite, or you know, whatever works. But it is that thing of, you want people to at least form an opinion and sort of say, yes, I can really work with you, or no, I could never work with you. And I went to work with somebody once, and they weren't right for me. So other people had said, this person's really, really good. I think you know, you should have a chat with them. And I thought, yeah, I'm sure they are very good. It's not the right person for me.
Yeah.
And that's the thing as well. It's about having that knowledge about yourself as well, and a bit of confidence, just to kind of say, I know not everybody will like me, not everybody will like my style, but that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of in the book I mentioned that there's and in my conference course I mentioned there's a key conversation I had at university. I was incredibly shy, believe it or not, back in my teenage and early 20s. And I'd been out of uni for a year, and I went back in, and I was sitting in this big auditorium, and I'm next to this guy, and I knew nobody in the room. And I'm thinking, I'd been out of uni for a year, and I think, oh no, this is going to be awful. And this chap said, we got talking. He had introduced himself, and I said, I'm just not sure if I'm even going to stay, because I hated uni first year, and I'm just not sure about this. And he said, talking about it, I didn't really make friends and things. He said, well, you can only be you, and if they don't like it, to hell with them. He actually used a stronger word than that, being West Coast of Scotland. But and I just thought, do you know, from that moment on, I just kind of decided, you mentioned authenticity on Wednesday, and I just decided, that's it. You know, I'm just going to be me. I'm going to stop this people-pleasing nonsense, stop the chameleon-like behaviour, and try to fit in with whatever group I was in, and just be me. And yeah, you'll lose some people, but the right people stay. Yeah. And it's the same in business. Yeah. You know, there are some people who'll talk to me and think, yeah, I can really work with this guy. And there'll be some people who go, oh, no, I can't work with this guy, you know, or I really like that person's approach better, you know. I often say to people, if you come looking for me to be like Anthony Robbins and building your energy every day, you ain't going to get it. You know, I warn people about that, because that's not me. You know, my philosophy is that I'm helping you think so that you don't need anybody else to build your energy. You know, if you need somebody who's going to have to be, hey, razzmatazz every day, you ain't going to get it from me, so you might be better going somewhere else. And it's a great way to be in business. You do then have a cut-off point with some people. Yeah. There was a fab lady, I'm trying to remember her name, who came out with a book, Personal Branding for Brits, Jennifer Holloway. She was on the networking circuit for a while, and I bought some of her books to give to my clients as well, back when I was a marketing consultant. And we have that, what she called brand width. So there's my personal Brian, you know, who right now would be sitting here in a pair of lounge pants and a t-shirt, or working Brian who's got his chinos on and a shirt, you know. And the language you use is slightly different for each, but there's still you within that. Whereas if you go outside that, you're trying to be something you're not, and you eventually get caught out in that stuff anyway. So you're better being, as you say, authentic. And
I think so. Yeah. You know. I think you want that to be relatively narrow, though, as well, don't you? You don't really want to have a very different persona. Otherwise, you could potentially show up in the you know, what am I supposed to be today? With this person, you know, I think it's better to have that. I like the idea of brand width. I hadn't heard of that. I like it, but I think it wants to be quite narrow. Where you maybe switch. You know, otherwise, you'll probably find the same as well. You find yourself coaching your friends.
Yeah. I try not to.
Stop it.
Yes, I try not to. It's almost, it's one of the things I do is I don't. I mean, what I wear is fairly generic. You know, it's short. Today it's a short sleeve shirt, just a nice day, blue shirt. But I wouldn't wear this going to a friend's house because this is my coaching outfit. You know, this is work outfit. So a lot of it comes down to me with it's almost like a subconscious trigger. And it was like a good friend of mine who'd started his business years ago. He works in sportswear, and he wears joggies and a t-shirt all the time, right? Now I can't differentiate between what he wears at night and what he wears during the day at work, but he knows that's his work clothes and this is his evening clothes, right? And that's what, and he said, wear your work clothes when you're working at home, when I first started, and then change. So you know,
Right.
and that's one of the small ways I kind of know where my brand with is, you know, what I'm wearing when I'm working.
I'd really be interested. Brian's asked good questions. Oh, this is Pam's comment. Brian asks good questions in a kind way. Well, that's a very nice thing to say.
Yeah. I sometimes ask nasty questions in a nice way as well, just to kind of scare you a wee bit.
Well, she does say good questions, and a good question isn't necessarily a nice question, but it's a.
Well, that's what life coaching is all about.
I'd be interested to hear from the people who are watching. I have it on a different screen. That's why I keep staring off into the middle distance. How they differentiate between. I have a thing because we're going on about the pandemic again. Quite a lot of people have said things like, "Oh, how do you know when it's the weekend?" Which I think is quite sad, because I think I have things that are different for me that mark out my weekdays, so that I can relax and recharge a bit. And it doesn't mean that I don't do any work on a Saturday or a Sunday, although I try not to do any on a Saturday. But so, for example, sitting in this chair in this office doesn't happen on a Saturday and a Sunday.
No.
You know, I might be on the laptop, but I'll be sitting on the sofa or at the dining room table or something like that. I'll be in a different place. And you're right, I'd wear kind of different clothes. Having said that, of course, there's pandemic wear, which is from the waist up.
Yeah, camera ready from the waist up.
And yes, I mean, like, I don't necessarily, but equally, you know, it's not about wearing the power suits anymore. And it's been quite interesting to see people on Zoom calls who know when you've met them at, you know, the Village Hotel or whatever, which is where you and I would both been.
Yeah.
You know they've been wearing a suit and tie and, you know, properly suited and booted, and they're more likely to be wearing a polo shirt. Definitely not. I haven't seen anybody wearing a tie yet. I don't know whether you have, but
no, not in any of the calls I've been on. No.
Yeah, but so it's going to be interesting post this. You know, what happens if and when we do go back to face-to-face networking? Exactly how all that's going to pan out.
Yeah, I think people will go back to what they feel comfortable in. We were chatting on Mess the other day. When I first started as a marketing consultant, I'd come out of corporate, and it was red silk tie, cufflinks, suit, boots. As you say, that was my look. It was a blue check shirt, as you remember.
Yeah.
And then I lost the tie. The tie went. But purely because I had more of those shirts, I still wore the cufflinks. I quite liked wearing my cufflinks, you know, and I'd got hundreds of pairs of them. So people used to give them as gifts. But then, as time went on, I started to realise that I wasn't as approachable for small business people, you know, with the reds. So that had to go. The tie went, and then it got down to like chinos and a jacket rather than, you know, or trousers and a jacket rather than a suit, you know. And it's really about, you know, making your audience comfortable when you're in business. I think as well, you know, it's making your audience comfortable. What is they happy seeing you in?
Nobody will be surprised to hear me say it's all about your avatar. You know, it is all about knowing who you're wanting to attract. And well, apart from the fact you're not going to attract large corporates at a networking event anyway. It's interesting because I've been working with somebody who's in financial services, and I'm not giving anything away here. We were just kind of talking about that, about being approachable, and how a lot of people potentially are put off by the, you know, the very sharp suit and the tie and and that look, and actually, and the word wealth, because most people think I'm not wealthy, so why would I talk to that guy? And no matter what they say, if they're dressed like that and they mention the word wealth, you're immediately cutting out a whole pile of people who just think, well, that's not me, I've not got any money, you know. Whereas managing your finances, you know, should
Yeah.
be something that we all feel comfortable with getting help with, because we
Yeah,
probably all
exactly.
need some help with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's I mean, when I was quite defensive of wearing a suit and everything when I first started, because I thought this is me showing a respect for what I do with you, you know. And I was working with, to a certain extent, when my first few contracts were kind of fairly recent sized businesses, you know, and some of them were parts of corporates, and then it was more kind of medium sized businesses rather than small business. And then I found I was enjoying more of the startup stuff and doing all that kind of thing again. And suit and tie just does not suit these people, you know, because excuse the pun, but it doesn't, because, you know, some of them would be small. I worked a lot in construction, so I worked with small construction companies when I was a marketing guy, and they didn't expect to see you in that attire, you know. They don't. I know other consultants who still go out, and friends of mine who go out in their suits and shirts and ties, but they tend to be working with corporates and much bigger international organisations. You know, it's horses for courses.
But even that, I think, is potentially going to change, because I think there's going to be much less travelling around. I think there'll be much more done remotely.
Yeah, I mean, there was moratoriums from IBM when they were still here, and Lenovo here don't travel as much. A good friend of mine has teams in Bratislava, Guadalajara, Raleigh, and somewhere else. I think it's China. And she used to have to fly, but then a couple of years ago they just said, "No, we're not doing that anymore. You can do it with this technology. You know, you don't need to be in the room with somebody, you know, for these kind of conversations."
So that's 2:30. How the time flies when you're having fun, eh? I just always ask, because it's just, you know, shameless self-plug really. So the question that does go out in the questionnaire, don't look so worried, you look really worried there. One thing you've learned from the Business Success Society?
Yeah, one of the things that I have learned, and it's actually kind of, I don't think it's something you've taught, but it's actually something that you've shown by example, is for the groups that I run a group on Facebook as well, and it's kind of stagnated recently, and it's because I haven't been given it the consistent attention that I should have been given it, and being in there more often. I was doing a weekly teach, which would be an hour every Thursday, and I did that for 6 months, but I wasn't doing a lot more with it than that, other than posts going into it and that kind of question type things, and we'll get some units for learning in there. But I need to go in there a lot more regularly, and actually show up more and be more consistent with that, if I want to build that group and get it running a bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, to be honest, I actually really enjoy doing it. I mean, I started it January last year, and you know, I love it. I really enjoy doing it. So what's not to like? What's not to like? And that's the ice cream van. I don't know whether you could hear that. No. you were talking earlier about
social distancing with the ice cream van.
So thank you very much indeed. I don't think nobody's come through with any questions or comments. I'd even asked them a question and they've all gone quiet on me now. But thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure as ever having a chat with you, and I hope you have a great weekend. And to everybody else, we'll be back here on Monday morning with the Monday Social. It comes around again with unfailing regularity, doesn't it? So thanks very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.